Hi everyone. Now, if you would argue that ice cream is essential, and that is today's essential recipe, I am making a classic vanilla ice cream. That means I'm starting off by showing you how to make the custard that's behind this creamy, rich ice cream recipe. Then we'll watch it churn because that's just so much fun. And whether it's soft serve or scooping your ice cream, you are going to be proud of this recipe. Stay with me. It's time for classic vanilla ice cream. As I mentioned, this is a custard style of ice cream, meaning you make just that, almost like a crème anglaise, except heavy on the cream. And that's what I'm going to start by heating my milk and my cream. Now, when you're making ice cream, you can't use straight cream. It would just be too fatty and it would actually taste greasy when you're eating it. So I do add a bit of milk, and then I'm going to measure in 1.5 cups of my cream into the pot. And let me follow my measurements here. There we go. I'll get that heating. But I'm measuring this final 1/2 cup into my bowl that I'll be straining the cooked custard into to immediately start cooling it down so that it doesn't overcook in the pot. And it just means that the custard cools faster, which means I can get it into the ice cream machine that much faster. Let me get this started. If I were flavoring my vanilla custard with a vanilla bean, I would want to scrape out the seeds and put it into the cream now to let the heat draw out the flavor. What I am using right now is a vanilla bean paste. So the bean seeds are in there, but the full flavor has been extracted. So you don't have to add your bean paste to your heating liquid. It can go right into that cold cream at the very end. And the reason I'm doing that is so that I don't cook away all that beautiful vanilla aroma. This will settle in and I'll strain my cooled custard into it. Okay, while my milk is heating, I'm gonna get my eggs ready. I'm separating 3 egg yolks. Well, I should say I'm separating 3 eggs. I'm using the yolks for the custard. I'm finding old school desserts are really making a comeback. So if you wanted to save the whites and do something like a baked Alaska is that ice cream dessert with cake inside of it, and then the meringue protects it on the outside so you can bake it in the oven. All right, here we go. While my cream is heating, I have 2 ingredients to add. First, some of my sugar. So this is the full amount measured. I'm going to put half into the milk to dissolve. That way it just takes less time for the custard to cook. And I'm going to wait until the cream is ready to add to the eggs before I add the remaining sugar. So you don't have to measure it precisely, just 50-50. But the other key ingredient I'm adding to this ice cream mix is a couple tablespoons of skim milk powder. Now, this is the key to making ice cream that holds a dense richness. You know how some ice cream is really whippy and airy? You pick up the tub in the store and there's nothing to it? Well, other ice creams that have that density use skim milk powder in it. And that helps prevent some of what we call the overage, that air, that extra volume that's worked into ice cream through the churning process. The key differences between gelato and ice cream are the obvious. Ice cream uses cream. Gelato relies on milk, but it's the machinery that's also different. A gelato machine churns at a lower speed than an ice cream machine, and that too prevents that overage, that extra volume, the airiness. So you get real full flavor and a creamy texture to your ice cream or gelato, depending on what you're making. Okay, my milk and cream is starting to get some steam. So we're going to be pretty close there. And now I'll add my sugar to the egg yolks. The reason I waited until right when I'm close to add the cream is if you add your sugar to the egg yolks and let it sit without whisking it, you can get these little specks of almost coagulation. And it isn't cooking, but those are hard to dissolve into the cream after you've added it. So I wait until the last minute. I've got some bubbles just beginning to break the surface here. And if you followed my videos, you know this step is called tempering. So I'm evening out my temperatures, introducing the hot milk to the eggs. And let me just give my pot a little wipe here so it doesn't scorch on the bottom. Now this gets all added back. I'm going to cook my custard on medium heat. Go until it thickens up. If you're using a thermometer, you want to cook it to about 170. So at 165, you know your eggs are cooked. At 170, no more than 175, you know your custard has thickened. But you don't want to go further than that because then it risks overcooking the egg yolks. So I have, while I'm whisking constantly, just a reminder, I've got my little bit of cold cream left, my vanilla. I do want to add half a teaspoon, let me just multitask here, of salt to the cold cream, just to balance out the flavor. No other function than that. And I'm not making a pastry cream, so I just need to whisk until I see it thicken. So if you're not using a thermometer, you can use the dip test. When you dip a spoon or wooden spoon into it, when it coats the back of the spoon, you know it's thick. Ultimately, this process takes about 2, usually no more than 3 minutes. 3 egg yolks for 2.5 cups of liquid is not a lot, so don't expect this to thicken up too much. It's even less eggs than you would put in a creme anglaise sauce, but it's enough to add richness to the ice cream. All right, so this is ready to come off the heat. And I do want to strain it and right into that cool liquid. Beautiful. And that's why you strain it. You can see those little bits, just the hint of egg white that was on the surface of those egg yolks. Well, it can interfere with that creamy, smooth ice cream, so we don't want that to happen. Give this a little stir. Excellent. Now I'll let this cool on the counter for about 20 minutes, just so it's not going into the fridge hot. And you have to make sure you chill this completely before it's ready for the ice cream maker. So that can take 4 to 6 hours. All right, I've got my very well chilled custard base ready for my ice cream machine. Now this is a compressor based ice cream churning machine. So the compressor is here, which means I turn on the motor for the wheel and I turn on the freezing unit and it freezes as it spins. With a unit like this, it takes about 20 minutes. And if you have one of the freezer inserts, you want to make sure that's been in the freezer for a good 24 hours. But the principle is the same. It's freezing and moving the liquid at the same time. And that's what gives the ice cream its creamy texture, because those ice crystals stay nice and small. So the first thing I do is get my timer rolling. I've got my motor running, the freezer function on, the timer is set, and now the ice cream machine does all the work. This unit comes with a lid that you can keep on top, but I want you to see all the action. Oh, that's such a hypnotic process to watch, isn't it? And we have ice cream. Now, a couple of quick little tips. If you're using a compressor-based machine, it's a good idea to turn the freezing function off, but keep the machine moving. This will help prevent, when you do stop the machine, the outside of the unit being too cold that the ice cream freezes to the side of it and it's too hard to scoop out. Another tip, freeze or refrigerate the container you're going to put your ice cream into. Cold ice cream, warm container, you don't want to melt all this beautiful work you did. Okay, so now you can just start scooping it out. Some commercial units are upright so that you can just turn on a nozzle and the ice cream comes out of the machine, or it's easier to scrape out. This one, the tabletop model, I'm not sure why they designed it this way. Normally I keep this on a rolling cart so that way I can wheel it close to the sink to make it easy to clean up. I don't want to waste any ice cream. Remember, this is metal, so you want to let this warm up if you're tempted to lick it. Don't want to stick to it. So for this recipe, you get a good 5 to 6 cups of rich, creamy, custard-based ice cream. There we go. You can see how I'm having no trouble cleaning the sides of the machine because I turned the freezer function off for just a few seconds. All right, now if you love soft ice cream, well, you're just gonna dive in and get a bite of this. Or if you wanna serve it in scoops, give it at least 2 hours to chill, ideally 4 hours, or overnight if you're making it ahead of time. I'll go get a lid for this and pop it in the freezer. All right, so choosing to make ice cream for you was a little selfishly motivated because I just wanted some homemade ice cream. Here it is after it's had a chance to firm up. What I like about this recipe, sometimes when you make homemade ice cream, a day or two later, the ice cream turns rock hard and it's hard to scoop. This recipe stays soft and pliable. Now I'm ready for a couple scoops, and something I learned, one of my very first jobs when I was a teenager was scooping ice cream at an amusement park. And I learned that when you dip your scoop into water, don't dip it into hot water because that will immediately crystallize as you're scooping the ice cream. Room temperature water keeps your scoop clean so you can get nice, clean scoops. Oh, and I love that texture. You can see that you've got some air volume in there by that sort of almost tearing of the ice cream, but there's enough pull to it that you know it's got a beautiful density, wonderfully rich. Oh. And well, what goes with ice cream? Fudge sauce. And a few sprinkles, just for good measure. I know you're going to enjoy making this delicious French vanilla ice cream recipe. You'll feel so good when you take that first ice cold bite. I thank you for joining me, and I'll see you again for another bake-along. Well, this wasn't really a bake-along, was it? More of a freeze-along. Oh, it's so good. You can feel it right there.